and visible. Yes. So on my computer, it's showing that you can see it. And let's see if I'm on the right window. No, I have to change the window so I can access the presentation. Oh, I'm here and here. Yes, it's working now. Okay. So first, let me introduce myself. So I'm Andreea Żak. I'm connecting today from Poland. I am a certified psychotherapist. I work in my private practice, and I also do research. I'm also passionate in doing research, and I let's say try to also examine the projects which I'm doing. Yes, so also make some project studies, but also making review studies. I'm also a part of the research task group of the European Brief Therapy Association, where together with Ritis, I saw that joined in, we are hosting and actualizing and updating the list of references of publications. So we try to be in touch with new publication, what is currently researched, and have some links on the website to help others also to access the databases. Of course, we don't hold the databases, but we just hold the links which may facilitate other people to reach research. So I was thinking today, like, to talk about what do we already know so far, because we know that there is a lot of research done, and every year more and more research is being made. Yes, so it's good from time to time to look at what do we already know, where do we stand, and then think about what is a next step good for the approach. And in this regard, in today's presentation, I will of course start with the current evidence, then some next steps, but all is going to be more based on the effectiveness and of criteria which are specific to the psychological field or psychotherapeutic field, because that's the field where I work and I'm interested. So that's the majority of literature which I'm reading. So there is a lot of research, very good research and strong methodological designs which are made in coaching, but I'm not familiar with it. Yes, so this is going to be only on the psychological side. And in the end, I will talk a bit about the options. So I know that not all practitioners are also academics. I'm not an academic person by myself. So an option of performing practice research as another option of adding to the evidence, and also the possibility of publication in the Journal of Solution-Focused Practices, where I'm also the research editor. So before going into the topic, a bit of a definition of the concepts. So of course, when we think about effectiveness and more like in the general language use, so as some definitions here from Oxford or from Cambridge Dictionary. So effectiveness means the rate of success of reaching the goals which we want to reach. Yes? So if we, by what we are doing, we get what we are aimed to reach. And in Cambridge Dictionary, there is also a slight definition or a slight precision of what does it mean of a treatment to be effective. And they very nicely defined it as a treatment which works well for the general population, not only in controlled conditions, control scientific conditions. And why this distinction is important? Well, this type of distinction is also made by the American Psychological Association, when they talk about effectiveness research and efficacy research. So effectiveness research, it's like research which either looks past, so gathers the evidence which already exists there, either conducts new studies to gather new evidence in order, of course, to evaluate how well the treatment works, so how well the treatment helps the client with a specific issue. And the effectiveness research are mainly based in naturalistic settings, either for naturalistic observation or not so controlled experiments. It's more maybe like quasi experiments, some control group, but not really controlling all the variables which are there. And in turn, efficacy research are those studies which are mainly known as are based on those studies which are mainly known as RZ. RZT are either randomized clinical trials or randomized control trials where there is a lot of control. Yes, so in order to be able to say that indeed the effect which we get is the effect which comes from the treatment, is not an effect which comes from some outside variables. Because, for example, if a client comes to a private practice, it the fact that he or she or like the client receives the treatment is one factor which can influence the outcomes. But additionally, a divorce may happen, or change in professional career, or maybe even getting a new job. So there are other factors which also can influence the outcome. Yes, the effect on patients' well-being. Yeah, so in the efficacy research is more like controlled as much as possible those external variables which are not connected to the treatment, so in order to be able to say, oh, this is what generated the outcome. And these differences and a high emphasis on control studies is something which was found and put an emphasis from the very beginning when some specific criteria of effectiveness were proposed to evaluate the effectiveness of psychological or psychotherapeutic approaches by the American Psychological Association. So this happened like a long time ago, this 1995, where a special task force called on promotion and dissemination of psychological procedure divisions of clinical psychology was created with this purpose, to establish the criteria and then to evaluate existing treatment based on this criteria. And in the beginning, the criteria were mainly looking at the number of studies which were performed in a controlled condition. So a well-established treatment was to be set if there were at least 2 randomized controlled studies performed by 2 different research teams using the same treatment manual and showing either results which were superior to pharmacotherapy or placebo, or either similar to some other well-established treatment. Otherwise, if there was only one randomized control study which fit the above criteria, or the 2 randomized control studies were performed by the same research team, the treatment was to be evaluated as probably efficacious. And all the rest would be considered experimental treatment. I know that there is not so much emphasis on all the rest, yes, because usually in literature, you find, oh, this is a well-established treatment, or this is a probably efficacious treatment, but about the others, they're not really talking about this. But all others should be considered experimental treatment, meaning that there is not enough evidence to say, or the evidence was not evaluated in order to say if the treatment is effective or not. Yeah, so it's not to be dismissed by default because it's not on the list. Of course, these criteria were from the very beginning criticized, and some of the critics, yes, not all the critics, but just some of the critics connected to the use and to the emphasis on focusing only on randomized control trials, because for one side, all methodological studies, they are prone to some biases. There is no ideal conditions. There are some errors which, whether you want it or not, they can appear in the study, and not all randomized control studies are equal between them. So they differ in the amount of biases which arises. Additionally, control conditions are not something which are replicated in the natural environment. So one strong critic is even connected to this, that the treatment which is like studied in control condition, like based on the manual, is like, let's say, an artificial treatment applied to an artificial client by an artificial therapist, because in reality, a lot of other factors happened. So therefore, Other proposals were made, yes, and the APA also took into consideration this type of criticism, and with currently a high emphasis is put not only on the number of control trials, because now a lot of research are made in this using this type of methodology, but emphasis is put also on non-randomized studies of intervention, which show how the intervention work in natural settings. Additionally, the evidence is it is supposed to be assessed by quality, not only the randomized studies, but also the non-randomized studies. And the higher confidence is given not to the number of control studies, but to the confidence which we can get from systematic reviews. Systematic reviews being those reviews which look at past studies and gather evidence from existing databases. And in this regard, yes, so all this is considered like, okay, so we get evidence and we know what research say, but then when you want to apply it to the client, it is recommended, nevertheless, to look at the particular client and to make the judgment based on the clinical experience. So it becomes more like naturalistic, anyways. So looking at how the evidence currently is gathered on the effectiveness of the solution-focused approach. So, of course, as we know, there are many primary studies. Yes, primary studies meaning single studies which were performed by different researchers, both in randomized and non-randomized conditions. And also, there are also published many publications on systematic reviews, which are considered like the first level of synthesis. Yes. And if the systematic reviews include some statistical analysis where they analyze the data from the primary studies and they analyze it together, of course, using some specific methodology, those systematic reviews are called meta-analysis, and they provide an even higher level of confidence in the findings. And additionally, there is a second level of synthesis, meaning umbrella reviews, when we look at evidence which is gathered in the systematic reviews. And this is what happens when you have many systematic reviews, and then you want to know, okay, where are we at? And if there are some inconsistencies in the findings. And I have conducted together with a colleague of mine, Krzysztof Pękala, a first umbrella review on the solution focus approach. And the study is published, and you can find it in the psychotherapy research, and is open access. And in these studies, we aimed to find answer to three main questions. Yes, of course, first to know where are we at. Yes, so for what type of clients and issues is the effectiveness of the solution focus approach already well established, and how much reliability do we have in these findings? Additionally, we wanted to look at what factors can moderate were found out, yes, by the meta-analysis. So meta-analysis are the ones who can identify what moderators are there, who can explain some possible inconsistency in results. And for this purpose, we intended to have like a global overview, because this was the first umbrella review ever made on the solution focus approach. So we wanted just to see and to integrate all systematic reviews which were published from the very beginning, with no restriction of the age of participants or other characteristics, and also no restriction of the language. The only like inclusion criteria is what it has to be. It had to be some systematic review which had to provide some inclusion criteria and employ some quality assessment. So therefore, not all systematic reviews were included, but those who fit this criteria. And of course, perform on outcome studies and in the psychological or psychotherapeutic approach. We have search in 5 electronic databases, additional to some manual search of reference list, and even of the reference list which I've mentioned at the beginning, which is held by EBTA and also by the American Association. And we started in 2021. And umbrella reviews is something which it's a long process. So to gather the data, extract the data, analyze it, and so on. So this is something which is normal. This is what happens. So therefore, we put a Google Scholar alert to identify reviews which appear after this official manual search. So in the end, we gathered about 4,500 articles, from which about 2,000 were replicated, like half were duplicates, because in the same electronic databases, the same articles appeared many times. And following the screening of the title and abstract, we end up with 131 articles which may fit the criteria, and we have, together with Krzysztof, read all these 131 in order to establish if we can include them in our umbrella reviews. And finally, we decided to include 25 systematic reviews, from which, as we can see, 15 were meta-analyses. Yes, so they employed statistical analysis. And in this is also included 3 articles which were published later. Yes, so in this period from 2021 to 2024. And we had a good inter-rater agreement between us. And one thing at which we looked in the beginning was the amount of, let's say, originality of results. Yes, so of course the systematic reviews are based on primary studies. We wanted to see how much these primary studies are different in various systematic reviews. And we actually found out that they are not that different. Yes, so there is a there's a mathematical formula to calculate this, which is called corrected coverage area, which was 24%, which indicated a very high overlap, meaning that, okay, we have a lot of systematic reviews, but those systematic reviews are mainly based on the same primary studies, which means that we have a lot of publications, but the publication don't really fit the high criteria for them to be included in systematic reviews and then be evaluated at this level. So this is what the very high overlap meant. Just as some numbers, from the total of references, 71 articles represented 51.5% of the total citations. Yes, so they were repeatedly cited in between 2 and 8 systematic reviews. Next, we made the quality assessment, yes, following the criteria which I mentioned earlier. And we assessed both, with AMSTART, we assessed both the quality of and the bias which can arise in the systematic reviews per se. And with grade UR, we assess the evidence which arise from the primary studies. Yes, so we made 2-level quality assessment, on which I will talk later. And looking a bit like the description of the systematic reviews, so overall the publication of the systematic reviews spanned between 2000 and 2023, but the primary studies which were included were from 1987 to 2021. Yes, so of course it shows that this, on the one side, it shows that the solution focused approach has been researched for a long time, but also that the data is based on older studies. Yes, so it's good to have data which is based on newer studies, because newer studies, like in time, the methodology changes. Yes, as we saw, like some criteria which were actual in 1995 are not the same criteria which are actual now in 2025. Yes, so methodology is always improving, and that's why it's good to have more current studies, because they try to be more up to date with the requirements. The majority of systematic reviews included both randomized and non-randomized studies, not analyzing them separately, but just considering them together. And only few studies had either only control studies or non-randomized studies. The majority were performed on children and adolescents, which also can be seen in the setting where outside the fact that the majority were performed on the overall population, so studies performed everywhere, taken together and analyzed. The most research environment was the educational environment. And also the majority of systematic reviews were performed on studies which originated from the Western regions. What was interesting is that the studies which were focused on the Eastern regions were focused on mainly on single countries. Yes, so was systematic reviews or meta-analysis performed only in China, or from studies from China, or only from studies from Korea, Iran, and Turkey, which shows that actually there are many research which are made in these countries which allow for systematic reviews to be performed in these single countries. Yes, in Western countries. So in the Western region, there are not that many research performed in one country to have a systematic review focusing on the particularity of that results. Intervention also, many, all format of intervention were present, were examined with a predominance of group format in the Eastern studies. And as a control group, again, all types of control were present, with passive control more predominant in the Eastern studies again. Now, looking at the quality. If we look at the quality of the systematic reviews based on AMSTAR, at the first look, the results don't look very bright, yes, because like 20% had a low confidence in finding, and 80% had critically low confidence in findings. But this is not something which is discouraging, because this is something which is normal due to the criteria of AMSTAR. So for AMSTAR, these numbers which are here in red, yes, the item 2, 4, 7, 9, and so on, are considered critical items, and it is enough to have one critical item not fitted in for the study to be considered, okay, this is a low confidence. Yes, and if you have more than one, then it's critically low confidence. And this is more specific to medical and psychological systematic reviews. Yes, so it's not something which is specific to the solution focus approach, but usually when you studies found out is when you use AMSTAR for studies which are performed in the medical setting and psychological setting, usually you get these numbers. Yes, so we are in the area. What does it mean is that, like, for example, the bias which normally appear in studies were discussed at the discussion level, but they were not considered at the inclusion level. Yes, so if this didn't fit, then the confidence was assessed as low. Now, looking on the results. So overall, what the studies showed, and we have noticed a difference between Western and Eastern studies in meta-analysis in what concerns the estimated effect size, where we have very large effect size reported for Eastern studies and like small effect size for the Western studies. But when we look at particularities of the study design, type of control, and intervention format, we can see where these differences come from, because also the meta-analysis identified study design, type of control, and intervention format as significant moderators of effectiveness, of course, alongside other moderators, such as the type of outcome or the number of elements included in the intervention. So Eastern studies were mainly performed on not reporting as randomization, including mainly or only even exclusively passive controls, and focusing only on group format. And these aspects were identified to be associated with high effect size. Yes, in the other way, Western studies included both randomized and non-randomized studies, included predominantly active control groups, so compared to other types of therapies, not to a group who did not receive any therapy. And the intervention format included also individual, couple, family, and other types, not only group format. And all these were found to be moderators associated with not so high estimated effect size. So we cannot really say if there is a difference in the outcome, in the strength of the outcome, until we have the same methodological design. So we have to have the same part in order for us to be able to say, okay, are there differences? Is it more effective in Eastern studies or not? Yes, for now we can just say that for group intervention it is more effective. Compared with no treatment, it is more effective. And if you use this predominantly in Eastern studies, you will naturally have this high estimated effect size. Otherwise, so meta-analysis, they identified some small to substantial heterogeneity, meaning that there is a variety of characteristics of the intervention, of the population, of the settings. Yes, so it's like we have a lot of studies, but they are conducted everywhere. Yes, so mainly like this is not so much focused. But what is important is that when it was examined, the risk of publication bias was found either to not exist, either to be small. Publication bias means that we tend to have positive results more published. So if we have positive results, is it because it is published and the negative results are not published? Yes, that would be. So the meta-analysis which analyze this is again some statistical formula and methods to use it. They identify that these positive results, so the fact that the solution focused approach is quite constantly reported to have positive results, is not due to the publication effect. Yes, so if the study is published or is not published or is just in a master thesis, it still shows positive results. And now these are results which are specific to the umbrella review, because we focused on also on seeing the primary studies and the outcomes which they examine. Yes, in order for us to be able to answer the first question, for what clients and what issues is the effectiveness established. So we looked at the results of the primary studies, but as they were reported in the systematic review, and we gathered them by categories. Yes, so we gather primary studies which focus on internalizing issue, which focus on the depression, separately on anxiety, on overall mental health, and so on. So we look separately for the adult population and separately from adolescents and children population. So we identified only 12 systematic reviews from the whole pool of 25. They focused on other population and provided information which allowed us to gather this data. And we identified 90 statement categories. Statement categories meaning that there is assessment. Solution-focused therapy is effective for internalizing issues. That's a statement category. Yes, and subcategory, solution-focused therapy is effective for depression. Yes, from within the internalizing issue, it's for depression. And we have analyzed it based on the grade UR evaluation, which looks at not only at the methodological quality, but it also looks at the precision, meaning that if the outcome was measured with some objective measure or it was just subjectively assessed. It also looked at the consistency. So if how many articles report results in the same direction, and of course direction. Yes, if the results show that it has a positive effect, neutral effect, or negative effect. And for a statement category to happen, at least 3 primary studies had to examine the same outcome, and additionally to fill this precision, direction, and consistency criteria. From all the studies, at least 65% had to show results in the same direction. Yes, and based on this, four categories are made, and we have found with high confidence that solution-focused brief therapy is effective for internalizing issues, and specifically for depression and mental and overall mental health, and for also progression towards goals. But what is important to know is that this high confidence is based on studies, primary studies, which were made on Western population. And additionally, the results which were obtained for the depression were obtained only from the randomized control trials, not otherwise. And high confidence means that more research in this area is not quite likely to change the evidence. We found moderate confidence for a large number of other outcomes, like in general internalizing issues when considering not only randomized control trials, but when considering randomized control trials together with non-randomized studies of intervention, here including also the subcategory of anxiety. On social issues and hope, which was specific to Eastern studies, and on self-aspect, medical aspect, couple issue, parenting and caregiving. So moderate confidence in effectiveness means that more studies are needed in order to make this evidence stronger. But for now, moderate confidence in evidence of effectiveness is in this category is considered to be a reasonable representation of the phenomena based on the data which we have. Low confidence we found for effectiveness for alcohol-related issue, challenges behavior in adults with intellectual disabilities, marital adjustments. Low confidence means that either there is not enough evidence, either the quality of the data is poor, either the results are everywhere. Yes, they are not consistently showing results in a positive or a negative direction. Yes, so we have one study showing positive, other negative, and the other neutral. Yes, so there is no 65% of the total pool which would show into one direction. And what is interesting is that with moderate confidence, we can say about non-effectiveness. Non-effectiveness meaning neutral effect, not that is a negative effect, but it says neutral effect on externalizing issues. Based on studies here, of course, because majority of studies were from the Western population. Non-neutral effect on externalizing issue, which may be interesting because like the solution focused approach, as we know, it works a lot on behaviors. Yeah, so we work in developing the preferred future in terms of behavior. What will you do? What will other people see you doing? What difference will it make? And so on in externalized form. But interesting research shows that it has an effect on the internal aspects. Yes. So there is a consistent effect in the internal aspect. People feel better, the well-being, yes, it improves. Not so much on the externalizing issues, but why non-effectiveness? Oh, this is what, like the results are everywhere. Yes, so there are a lot of research which is made, but not a lot of research showing consistently positive effects, positive results on the same outcome. And on the externalizing issue, the reason is that there is a large amount of subcategories there. Yes, as we saw, we have challenging behaviors, we have alcohol-related issues, which were also considered in this area. So it was too many different outcomes put together, research which is a bit everywhere. Yes, so it's not so strong evidence, not many proof in one direction. And something similar we have identified when looking at the effectiveness for children and adolescents, meaning that again, only when looking at the randomized control trials, we found moderate effectiveness for externalizing issues, but when looking overall, we found non-effectiveness, so neutral effect for externalizing or school issues. with low confidence, means that not very good quality studies or objective measures, which measure them, or statistical methods who would show the reliability in the findings. For children and adolescents, we didn't find a statement which reached the higher level of confidence, but we found many statements which reached moderate level of confidence in evidence for a wide variety of aspects. And as we see, as you can see here, some aspects were more studied in the eastern regions, some aspects were more studied in the western regions. So in conclusion, what do we know and what can we say by now is that, yes, solution-focused brief therapy is a useful intervention, is a good intervention with positive effects on a wide variety of issues for population with different ages, originating from different cultures. And what we can say with high confidence is that it is effective for internalizing issues in adults, and with moderate confidence in evidence that is effective for a wide variety of issues overall. Another thing which is important is that we found no consistent evidence of harm. So there is no consistent pool of evidence who would show, like research who would show that solution-focused therapy makes harm to people. Yes, it's not harmful. Yes, it is positive and it's not harmful. And again, I repeat, these results are not influenced by the publication bias. Now, of course, what next? Yes, so in order to make stronger the database and the evidence base of the solution-focused approach, of course, more rigorous studies are overall needed, respecting the current criteria of methodology. And our recommendation, or my recommendation, would be to focus more studies, more focused studies. Yes, so more focus on one specific aspect to gather more information on one aspect of one outcome, in order to emphasize this and to be able to assess the confidence in evidence. Based on the results from the meta-analysis, which found that using more than 4 core elements increases effectiveness, we also have this recommendation is to future research to include not single elements, but at least 4 core elements, because on the one side it provides better results, and better results, it seems that they are associated with higher fidelity of the intervention. Yes, so the more the intervention is as it's supposed to be, the more the effectiveness is there. It would be interesting to have more studies, comparative studies on brevity versus other approaches, because again, meta-analysis show that it is similar. It has a similar positive effect and outcome compared to other known treatment. But is it more cost effective? Yes, because we know that the solution focused approach is from the brief side. So do we know that okay, the same amount, the same outcome can be reached with fewer sessions if it is applied in the solution focused approach? Yes, so that would be interesting to see. And of course, reporting information, the methodological, yes, so articles, if they could report information in line with the grade assessment, because this is what is currently used in order to assess the confidence in evidence. Not saying that the instrument is perfect, yes, because everything is like subjective, and we are always in research trying to improve what we know, yes, but we have what we have. But just reporting more information, having more transparency in reporting to be able to assess this. And as I repeated, as similar methodology across cultures to be able to identify if there are some cultural differences for specific outcomes. Now, in the end, as I told you a bit about what can we do outside the academic environment, because as practitioners, we also have our own ideas and questions and our own way of working and applying the approach with clients. So this is basically the advantage of making practice-based research. Practice-based research, which is like a term which was coined by Epstein, using available clinical information in practice-based research, an article which he published in the Social Work in Healthcare, and it's a research which is inspired by the practice, is application of research inspired by principles and guidelines to current practice, yes, to find answers to a current issue. Let's say, for example, you have a client, which is an individual client, is not a control client. Yes, you have a client which has his own particularities of issues which may go beyond what is generally described in a handbook. Yes, and you want to know, okay, what can I do to help this client with this particular complaint? Yes, which goes beyond what generally in handbooks are written. And usually these results are addressed from practitioner to practitioners, and it has basically this the advantage that it shows how the intervention is adapted to the practice in real time. Yes, it shows relevant issues, how they are solved in clinical context. Is how as a therapist, using your own experience and your own knowledge, you apply the approach to this client. So of course you have to have research questions, like a research question for the given client, yes, and why would it be relevant to answer? Read something on the theoretical articles, is to identify what other variables may there be influencing the outcomes. Yes, some minimal requirements of the methodology. Usually these practice-based research are very well fit for case studies, and APA has very good sample papers which are free to read and to see how to organize and what is worth doing, and how is it worth reporting case studies. Of course, some tests, some measures, some standardized instruments to be able to show some objective measures. With a recommendation, you can also look for open sources, which they provide this test for free, not necessary to buy something which are legally bound by copywriting. And again, you also always can ask colleagues for consultation or some advices from academic colleagues or some statisticians, so not necessary to do all this alone. It's good to have an idea and then just gather a group of people and to help you put it into practice. And then the possibility of publishing with the Journal of Solution Focused Practices, which aims to support the solution focused community, is through the publication of high quality materials, both on the theoretical, on research, also case studies. So it is also a journal which is more addressed from practitioner to practitioner. So it's like welcoming case studies and welcoming this practice-based research as you as a practitioner experience the practice in your own field. It is a journal which is available online for free. Publication is online for free, and it is also double brand peer review is implied, where the review process is solution focused. Yes, so you will get feedback on constant feedback on improving the article. Is not like, okay, this article is not good, go somewhere else, as often happens with the impact factor journals. And so being solution focused, we'll try to give as much feedback and positive feedback as possible to help it improve. And let's just to have some time for questions or comments or ideas. So thank you for your attention. And here you have some links for the European Brief Therapy Association, where you can find the publication, the social focus approach publication list, which we host, and eventually an email contact to the research task group if there are some publication which you have published, or you know that they are published and they are not on the list, so you can always help us actualize it. Okay, so thank you for your attention. I will stop the presentation. And we have a couple of minutes to share or to ask.
Just starting with a big thank you. It's amazing how in 45, 50 minutes you encompassed all this. It's beautiful. And I'm not a researcher myself, so I was really happy with the last bit as well, that you encourage practice-based research and have these clear guidelines of what to do. That's just, yeah, let's hope that generates a lot more work. That would be amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. But actually, all research which are based in the control studies are later research. So in the beginning, practitioners do something, they find something, and then they're, oh, let's see how it really works. So when you think about
Mhm.
solution focused approach, this is how it appeared by practice-based research. Yeah.
True, yeah. And it's so nice that with the journal and the review process, you try to work along those same guidelines. So that's yeah, very interesting.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. I don't know if thank you for your thank yous.
I
Yes.
like this hint that the origin of the solution-focused approach was in this principle in there, and I'm curious and would like to pick your mind. What do you see as is there something similar? Is it happening till now? Or what should we do that it can happen?
Mhm. I don't know how much similar it is because I know that they were like more in like they had their question which they wanted to find the answer, what works.
Mhm.
And then they recorded a lot and they observed a lot and they experimented a lot based on that. Yeah. So what I really like, and I don't know how much more is that happening now. My personal opinion is that it can be a bit rigid now. Yes, because in the beginning they develop it. Yes, and they were open-minded. Yes, and they experimented. Oh, I see that this miracle question helped with this client. Let's see how it helps with the other client. Yes, or like, oh, I see that if I ask about pre-session changes, it helps. Let's see how it helps with others. So it was a testing, was
Wow.
opening, but then you have the structure. Miracle question helps. Let's do it for everybody. Pre-session questions help. Let's do it for everybody. And then you have a structure. And when you have a structure, then you have these arguments in the fields. If you don't you don't use the structure, it's not solution focused. Yeah. So it's I think it in a bit it hinders the openness in experimenting.
And any sign of overcoming this?
Don't get stuck, or don't be afraid of being criticized, of not being solution focused.
Yeah. I
maybe
know that
maybe
there was a time when Brief quite um, thoroughly researched their work, but I think they don't do it now. I also know that Harry Corman was practically always recording his work. I know that Hesan Moon records a lot, and yeah, it's really picking my
yeah,
mind right
yeah,
now.
yeah. And I think there also the microanalysis, which is like another way of looking at things, that if we maybe can have a database, of course, like respecting all the ethical requirements and so on, so to have videos analyzed by other practitioners, yes, by other researchers, then you can see things outside, yes, because when you are, even if you are as a therapist, you're looking at your own session, because I also record my sessions, but I'm in the process, even if I'm outside the process. From outside the process, you can see something else. And I think this is what happened at the Brief Family Therapy Center. There were a lot of outside the processes and behind the mirror. But then you have these ideas, you see things.
Yeah. Elliot Connie and Adam Frower have
Exactly.
a gold mine of recordings and analyzing each other's work. So
Yeah.
there's there's a huge database there too. Yeah.
It just came too late to my mind. Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Very cool.
Yeah. Please upload your recording to the any of the places that are in the presenter's guide, because this is one to watch again and again very slowly, because especially if you're not a researcher, there's a lot of information in there. But so if you would do that, that would be perfect.
I will. So I will stop the recording now, yes, and then maybe like with an apology for the language. Yes, I'm not native English speaker, but I hope it's
perfect.
I bet that most of your listeners aren't and weren't. So
okay, so thank you. I will stop the recording. Thank you.